Alright everyone, welcome to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin through a different lens. As I always like to do on my channel, I like to make sure that I'm not missing any perspectives. So for this, we're going to be switching things up and looking at a fresh perspective today, which is the Heikin-Ashi candles. Now, if you're already, a veteran to my channel, you would have long known what Heikin-Ashi candles are. I've covered these many times on Bitcoin, Solana, different cryptocurrencies, but for those of you who are new, we look at Heikin-Ashi candles to better define and understand the uptrends and downtrends within the market. For example, if we look at the chart right now on the Heikin-Ashi candles, you can see that it's very clear cut within both the volume and the price action. For example, with it from the start of the bull run around here at $10,000 in October of 2020, you can see, what did we do? We literally went all the way up until the top, and we only had one red candle, and this red candle was a doji candle. A doji candle is a candle with a spinning top. It normally has a thin body and it looks like this. The number one thing you need to know when we are doing Heikin-Ashi analysis, this is my opinion, I haven't heard other people say this, but at least from my perspective, when I do my TA on Heikin-Ashis, I like to ignore the doji candles, because a lot of the time you see a doji candle in a sea of green when it's red and it just doesn't matter. And the same way you see a sea of red, sometimes you'll see a doji candle like right here. So let's talk about what is going on right now with Bitcoin on the Heikin-Ashis. What we're going to do is we're going to start off on the higher time frames and we're going to work our way down. And with that, what the goal of this video is to learn, is the weekly time frame the best? Is the monthly time frame the best? What time frame should we be looking at to best understand what we should be looking at in terms of the Heikin-Ashis, and when can we expect a trend reversal? Let's jump right into the video. So starting off on the monthly time frame, what you'll notice on the monthly is, like I said, discount the doji candles from the lows of the 2015 bear market. On the monthly candles, we literally rode all the way up from $239 all the way up to the top of the 2017 bull market at $19,000. Now, what's super interesting is, I'll show you, we'll come over to the Japanese candlesticks and you can see we no longer have these clear seas of green. We no longer have these clear seas of red. It's a lot less intuitive when we do have these downtrends. It's sometimes hard to tell, are we topping out? Are we still going up? So when we account for Heikin-Ashi candles, and like I said, I have made a video on everything you need to know about Heikin-Ashi candles and how they're calculated. The main take from this is that they open approximately halfway through the previous candle body close. Why is that important? Well, traditional candlesticks open at the previous close. So all that matters to determine whether a candle is going to be green or red is, did it open above or below the previous candle? Now, Heikin-Ashis take into account the wicks all the way up, they take into account the wicks all the way down, and predominantly they open approximately halfway through the previous candle body. And if you look at this, when we do encompass the Heikin-Ashi candles into our analysis, it's a sea of green, then it's a sea of red, then it's a sea of green, red, green, red, green, red, green. And that might sound like a lot of colors, but that is all of the trends we've had since September of 2015. It is very clear cut when you're having uptrends and downtrends over on the Heikin-Ashis. What you'll notice is, after we topped out all the way at 20,000, it took about 2 months from the top for us to finally switch over into the red candles, and we topped out on the Heikin-Ashis all the way up here at 19,600, and we finally flipped bearish on the Heikin-Ashis around about 11,500. So if you were trading this from the lows, once we turned green, let's say you waited for the first green candle, let's say you took it from down here, That is the wrong tool. So once the downtrend finally started to subside and it finally started to turn green, if you did enter a trade and you exited as soon as, because obviously this would have opened in the red, it would have opened halfway down from this one, you would have literally made, you know, 4,500% profit on this one. What happened if you sat on the sideline on the monthly and waited for things to turn back green? Well, what you'll notice is from the top up here, where we flipped bearish, where, you know, like I said, we would have sold if we were trading this on the monthly, you would have got back in after you saw the first green monthly close. And after we did, you can see this was where we opened on the next one. You might be slightly confused because on the candle body we actually opened down here, but remember on the Heikin-Ashis we always open halfway through the previous candle. So even if, say for example, this candle body closes up here at 5,300, the candle will actually open down here at 4,400. So they open at slightly different areas, and thus we would not be able to say that after waiting for a 1 month green that we would be able to buy down here, because on the chart it would say that it opened at this level, but the price would actually be here at 4,750. So you would have missed out on a 57% drop after a 4,500% gain if you were looking at this on the monthly candles. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the gains and profits and etc. that you would have made, but you can see that it's very easy to trade these uptrends, get out when it starts to turn green. Once again, like I said, or get out when it starts to turn red. We do not consider doji candles to be anything of significance, so this would have just been another red candle. However, this is the green candle where you would have got back into the trend. Yes, we did capitulate a little bit, but we then went from $8,000 all the way up to $65,000 at the top of these Heikin-Ashi candles. We then topped out and started to turn red around about 50,000, and more or less discounting this bounce that we came back up, we've been in a downtrend since then. So on the monthly time frame for the Heikin-Ashis, it's very, very interesting. Looking at the volume as well, you can literally see beautiful seas of red, beautiful seas of green, and it's just very, very clear cut when we're entering in a downtrend, when we're done with the downtrend, and etc. So the monthly is definitely something I'm going to be looking at for Bitcoin. I do expect that we could come down to 22,000, and then if we start putting in green monthly candles, I think that's when we could see a major trend reversal. Let's hop over to the weekly time frame. Now, looking at the Heikin-Ashi candles for Bitcoin on the weekly, what you'll notice is it's a lot less black and white as what we previously saw over on the monthly, where it's just green, red, green, red, green. Over on the weekly, you can see there's seas of green. I mean, I don't want to say green, red, green, red, green, red for 100 times, but you get my point. There's a lot more trend shifts over on the weekly. So what I would say for this is, if you were trading based on the weekly, I would imagine that you would be a short-term trader, because in these uptrends in the bull market, you can see a lot of the time we have these big rallies, we cool off for a month, and it does show when we have these cool off phases over on the weekly. So in my opinion, if you were to buy Bitcoin on spot to try and buy the approximate bottom, you would be buying on the monthly. If you were buying Bitcoin as a leverage long, it's probably better to look at it on the weekly time frame, maybe the daily time frame. We're going to jump into that in a second, but if you were a trader, I'd say the weekly time frame is what you'd want to look at. You can still see these very clear seas of green and red. We switch back over to the Japanese candlesticks, and you can see that it's a lot more multicolored than simply looking at things over on the Heikin-Ashis. What you'll notice at this period in time, I want to focus on the trend on the Heikin-Ashis since we had our most recent pandemic scare in March 20. What you'll notice is we've got beautiful seas of green running all the way up to the top, and then a very, very clear trend shift for the past couple of months, well, for the past couple of years really, since the 10th of May 2021. You can see big sea of red followed up by a big sea of green, big sea of red, dead cat bounce, and once again we're in that big sea of red. So at this moment in time, the Heikin-Ashi candles, bear in mind they're a macro indicator, they're kind of telling us that the bottom is not in at this moment in time. That can change at any moment in time, but yeah, like I said, I would personally be keeping my eyes on the monthly for when I plan to pick up some Bitcoin on spot, along with a bunch of other indicators. I made a video the other day called Bitcoin, how to buy the bottom, and yeah, I definitely recommend you check that out if you're looking for a range of indicators, a range of technicals to look at where you could potentially be buying the bottom. But on the weekly, it's definitely very nice for a trader. I think if we did see this switch back over and we came back up and started pumping green, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I think it's more likely we do this before we go green, but that point in time is probably where you want to start getting excited. And let's define how many candles we would need to see. So in the previous bottoms, we've got this bottom over in 2018, and we've got this bottom over in 2020. Like I said, we discount doji candles, so we would have ignored these candles here. You would have seen a sea of red, and then as soon as the green came back right here, this is when we flip bullish, and it's the same over here. Technically speaking, you actually had a green doji, so you would have ignored that first one, but after that, you know, we were around about $6,400, and this is when the Heikin-Ashis were calling the bottom. Over here on the Heikin-Ashis back in 2018, this is where the Heikin-Ashis called the bottom. So if you're buying where you assume macro bottoms to be over on the Heikin-Ashis on the weekly, you can see that it pretty much has nailed almost the exact bottom for the past two bottoms. This one, not so much, but you know, I wouldn't mind picking up $6,000 Bitcoin and then having it go up to, you know, 69,000. And I definitely would not mind picking up a $3,500 Bitcoin when you can potentially see that, or when you can see that the bottom was down here at 3,100. Very, very nice. So I do not personally recommend to, because this is a macro video, I do not recommend to try and use the daily time frames to think you know where the bottom is. For example, if we look at the previous bear market, it was just chopping you up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. It seemed like every 4 to 5 days we would switch over bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish. So it seemed pretty hard to trade unless you're using super high leverage and you're literally getting in for like a day's worth of trading or so, which is not really my trading plan. But you can also see, you know, quite recently we had this big capitulation down to 25,000, and we started putting some green candles in around about 29,500, and we're already capitulating down to the levels of 29,100 right now. So personally, in my opinion, keeping the daily time frame quite simple, I would not use the daily Heikin-Ashi candles for buying the bottoms on Bitcoin. However, daily Heikin-Ashi candles for different cryptocurrency assets are definitely very, very nice. I remember I've previously been using the Heikin-Ashis over on FitFi. I've been using them on Green Metaverse token. I use them on Solana, and it's different for a range of projects. You might find that Bitcoin works best on the weekly and the monthly time frame, and you might find that these hyped up altcoins that have just come out, or they're just experiencing a parabolic run, would be a lot better to analyze on lower time frames. One quick example I can think of to show you, which is not Bitcoin. Like I said, this was a Bitcoin focused video on the Heikin-Ashis, but I do just want to show you that when you do look at different cryptocurrencies, for example, we're looking at FitFi. This is something, like I said, that I did trade on the Heikin-Ashis. It perfectly, absolutely perfectly called the top on the daily Heikin-Ashi candles. Obviously, this wouldn't have been something we would be able to do mainly on the weekly, because this is such a new project. So I hope that gave you some alpha. I hope you enjoyed listening to the Heikin-Ashi candle analysis over on Bitcoin, and more specifically, I hope you gained a better understanding of when and where to use Heikin-Ashi candles, and knowing what time frame to use for different cryptocurrency assets. As always, hope you enjoyed the content. Cowboy out, not financial advice, and most importantly, peace.